What if you could convert interview nerves into interview confidence? Well, that's the promise of this particular video. And in fact, if you put the 4 tips that I'm about to reveal into practice, then you'll be ready to give your best performance when it matters most. In fact, this is part of a series of videos we've made here at Momenta to help you get the contract you want faster than you thought possible. Hello, my name's Sam Waterfall, and I specialise in helping people to advance their careers and get the roles they want. I've been coaching in this field for 14 years, and during that time I've helped thousands of people to develop their careers and develop their potential. So in this video, 4 important interview preparation tips. Let's start with interview preparation tip number 1. This is about putting yourself into your interviewer's shoes. You see, far too many people, as they're applying for a contract and interviewing, put too much pressure on themselves. They're thinking only about themselves, and that makes them very self-conscious, and it makes them even more nervous. Try putting the focus on your interviewer. Think about the role of the interview from their point of view. They might be having to see many candidates, so make their life easy by giving them simple answers to the questions that they're really asking. Don't make it difficult by waffling on and saying too much. What I'd like you to do instead is think about what your interviewer really wants to see. And of course, the clue to that will be in the contract description. They don't know you. I always like to think about a scenario like 2 cartoon characters, maybe Snoopy and Charlie Brown. When you see them in a cartoon strip, you see that they have those speech bubbles above their head. Well, think about your speech bubble and your interviewer's speech bubble. Yours at the start is absolutely full. You know everything about you. By contrast, your interviewer knows very little about you. And what you're trying to do is not transfer everything between these 2 speech bubbles or thought bubbles, but you're just trying to transfer the relevant information across. So to do that, listen very carefully to your interviewer's questions. Try to understand from their point of view what they're needing to hear from you, and then give your best, most relevant examples in a particularly concise answer. By avoiding waffling and just giving short answers, you give them the opportunity to ask for more detail if they want to hear more detail. And that way, you're engaging your interviewer in a conversation rather than delivering a monologue. Interview preparation tip number 2. Be ready to introduce yourself. Most interviews start with the candidate being asked something like, "Can you tell me a bit about yourself?" And if that happens, you should be smiling, maybe on the outside, but certainly on the inside, because it's a real gift of an opportunity. It's a chance for you to say whatever you want, but to seed into the mind of your interviewer the things you would like to talk about, and to seed some of your best examples. But don't make the mistake of talking for too long. Just tempt them with these little bits about you, so that they can come back to them later on in the interview. So the biggest mistake people make is to go on and on for too long. So to avoid them even thinking or worrying about that as an interviewer, what you should do is tell them that you're just going to give a quick 2-minute summary. That will put their mind at ease right from the very beginning. And then I recommend using one of 2 approaches. Each one has 3 parts. And so in 2 minutes, you're thinking maybe about 30 to 40 seconds each, okay, for each of these parts. The first one is about time. Start in the past, talk about what you have done that's relevant in your career, then talk about what you're currently doing, and then talk about the future, what you would like to do next. And of course, that would be a description of the contract for which you're applying at the moment. The other way you can do this is to talk first about your relevant training or qualifications, then to talk about your work and career history, and then maybe tell them a little bit about you outside of work and outside of your field of training. So that's 2 different methods. One is going through time, and the other one is going from your training through your work experience and into you outside of the work environment. Both of those can work really well. Both of them give you a logic and a structure, so you don't talk for too long, but you can give a very thorough introduction to yourself. So the other thing I would make sure that you do there, within each of those sections, what you should do is briefly introduce the important hooks. Maybe you have a particular relevant qualification. Maybe you've worked for some companies on contracts previously that would be relevant experience to mention. These are hooks that your interviewer can pick up to speak about later. And as you've seen me do in this video, make sure you use body language to make sure they can see very clearly when you're moving between these sections. So this was the past, this is the current, and this is the future. It makes it so much easier to get the right ideas into your interviewer's head. So that's how you give a good introduction to yourself. Interview preparation tip number 3. Realize that there's actually only 3 underlying interview questions. What I mean by that is that although you might get asked lots of different types of questions, really at the back of the interviewer's mind, they've got 3 questions that they're trying to answer. Firstly, they want to know, can you do the role? That means, do you have the ability? Secondly, they want to know, will you do the role? Do you have the motivation and the enduring motivation to keep doing this all the way to the end of the contract? And thirdly, they want to know, will you fit in? That means, are you the kind of person that they want to work with or have around here? So these are 3 very important questions. Can you do the role? Will you do the role? And will you fit in? And any specific questions that you might get are actually underpinned by those questions. So at the end, make sure you think through those 3 to make sure you've really given that best account of yourself. Very important. Everything else is relating back to those questions. Interview preparation tip number 4. Know your details in advance. This is really the detailed preparation. So the best antidote to any kind of interview nervousness is thorough preparation. And the details at an interview are what really make you credible. You don't want to be remembering something that you meant to say after the interview is finished. So really do yourself the favour of thinking through the details well in advance. So how should you do that? Well, I recommend making sure you know your CV content inside out. You don't want to be surprised if they ask you a particular question about something you've not looked at in a few months or years. So make sure you know that CV content. The other thing to really look at is to know the contract description. Take a good look at that so that you're really aware of the skills, the areas of expertise that they are looking for. And then know which parts of your experience actually demonstrates that you have the skills that they're looking for. And know how you'll tell each of your stories and each of your examples in an effective way. I recommend the CAR acronym. C for context, A for actions that you took, and R for results. So explain the context. Where does this example come from? Where were you at the time? What was the year? Is it recent? And then the actions you took, maybe just a couple of bullet points to explain in sequence, what did you do? And then what was the outcome? What was the result? So that little formula, the CAR formula, lets you structure your answers in a way that's very, very easy for the interviewer to understand exactly what you delivered. Then finally, practice out loud in front of the mirror. I'm doing it now, and it's harder than you might imagine. So I seriously recommend practice out loud. It makes a big difference. You don't want to be trying to voice your answers for the first time in an interview that really matters. So that's it. A quick summary, that's 4 interview preparation tips for you to think about. Firstly, put yourself into the interviewer's shoes. Secondly, be ready to introduce yourself. That's a real gift of an opportunity at the start of an interview. Realize there's really only 3 underlying questions. They want to know, can you do the role, will you do the role, and will you fit in? And then finally, know all your details in advance. It's the best preparation you can do, and it's really worth taking some time over it. Now, there's your 4 tips. We really look forward to meeting you soon, and we wish you the very best of luck in your interview here at Momenta. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.